Hello everyone, and welcome to part 2 of our Epic Ride to the West series. In part 1 we started in Arkansas and rode through Oklahoma and Texas, visiting the 14 stages of the cross, and then eating supper at the Big Texan in Amarillo, Texas. We settled down for the evening at the Big Texan Motel. Our original plans were to ride to Arizona and visit the Grand Canyon. However, judging on how long it took us to get to Amarillo the day before, we knew that may not be possible. We considered staying in Amarillo and visiting Palo Duro Canyon, but we finally decided we'd rather attempt to visit a state we had never seen before. So, after a hearty breakfast at Denny's, we hopped on our bikes and continued riding to the west. One thing that continued to amaze us during the trip is how you could ride over a hill and the terrain would drastically change. We stopped at a small rest area on Interstate 40 and took these pictures before continuing on to Albuquerque. We arrived in Albuquerque later that afternoon and rode through downtown. The architecture of the old buildings next to the new ones was an awesome sight to see. One thing I noticed out west is that most restaurants have outside seating. It reminded me of Europe when I was in the Navy. Unfortunately, the weather back in Arkansas doesn't usually permit sitting outside. If the rain doesn't drive you back indoors, the humidity surely will. We searched for a free campsite in the surrounding mountains but couldn't find one. I finally found a site on a mountain just outside of Santa Fe, so after a brief visit in Albuquerque, we headed north. Little did we know, we were in for a very cold night. We rode up Santa Fe Mountain, which sits on the edge of the town of the same name. We climbed to an elevation of approximately 10,000 feet above sea level and stayed at Big Tesuque Campground. One thing that amazed me was there was cattle this high up on the mountain. We will see them in the video. Later that evening, they entered our campsite and we had to run them off. Unfortunately, I didn't get that on camera. Now, I told my son and my uncle we'd be camping on this trip, but neither of them came prepared. While I had a tent and a nice cot to sleep on, they had to string up a tarp connected to a tree and my son's bike. My son's feet must have smelled pretty bad because he said an animal woke him up sniffing them, even though they were buried in socks and in his sleeping bag. He said he jerked and the animal ran off. I also heard it run off. We didn't see it though, so we still don't know what it was. That night I stayed toasty in my tent and sleeping bag, but my son and uncle both froze sleeping on the ground. They said neither of them got much sleep, so the next evening we stayed in a motel and visited Santa Fe. We'll see that in the next video, as well as visit Las Vegas, New Mexico, where the show Longmire was filmed. We'll then ride through a canyon and end up in Tucumcari and stay in a Route 66 hotel. Until next time, may God richly bless you. This is Lawman, signing off.
Get my breeches on.
It's gonna be on YouTube.
Oh, really? You gotta cut that out.
There you go.
All right.